Now here I'm doing a test fit of my body cavity. I can see that I got enough room hollowed out in there for my LED. Again, this is just a simple solid LED that I got from off of eBay. There's a bunch of sellers, overseas sellers, that you can get 10 for $1. Don't buy them at Radio Shack; they're ridiculously priced. Buy them online. Buy them on eBay. The main reason is because, if you want to light up your whole army, you go through a whole bunch of them. The price is just ridiculously cheap. It takes a little bit while on shipping, but that's the best place I find. There's other suppliers online too if you want to look around, but eBay is where I get all my stuff from. I don't want it to go all the way up in there. I want it to sit right about there. It's going to sit in the body cavity. I want to test this way too, make sure it fits in perfectly. You can see that it does. It'll actually be sitting like this in a minute. Now I need to get out my soldering iron and do a little bit of solder. So that'll be next. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and just make a quick solder. I said I was using Cat 5 wire, but I lied. Actually what I have right now is scavenged from old phone. It works pretty good. It's a little bit thinner than the Cat 5 stuff. I'm not sure the exact gauge on it, but it doesn't matter. Like I said, I just use scraps around the house because I want to keep my costs low. Quality's not too bad either. I mean, we're just passing a small little current, so anything this size is going to handle it perfectly. As a matter of fact, you could operate off of 2 or 3 wires, which I'll show you that here in just a second, because the one side of the current will be on 2 wires. So, you want to keep in mind on the side of your LED, on the side of your LED, you have 2 wires. You have a long wire and a short wire. Okay, this has to do with your positive and your negative, and you want to keep those straight because it makes a big difference whenever you connect the battery. Positive has to be on positive, negative has to be on negative. And I do it the same way every time because it makes it simpler for me. You can do it however you want. We're not doing a complex circuit. We're not going to be putting in resistors or anything like that in there, so you don't have to know a lot about microelectronics to make this work, but you do need to keep stuff straight. And I'll show you that here in a second. Now, before I go ahead and solder anything, I always test my battery. I test my battery and I test my light. So, again, you remember I said that I have a positive side and a negative side. Positive is the longer one. The batteries that I use are CR1220 3-volt batteries. The reason why I use those is because they are perfect for this application. You don't have to put any resistors or anything like that on them, and they last a long time. As long as they only have a single LED on them, they work great. So we don't have to mess with any fancy wiring schematics or figuring out any resistors or any shit like that. It's just straight up 1 LED, 1 battery, and it should work like that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to cut this as short as I can get it, and then solder a piece of wire on there and a piece of wire on the other side, and then run that through my legs. So hold on a second, we'll do just that. Little fancy soldering rig here. Highly recommend getting one of these too, by the way, if you're going to do this. And a pair of nail clippers. I always do the positive side with my shielded wire, and then I do the negative side as an unshielded wire. And I use a stripped unshielded wire because it saves space inside the model. The plastic doesn't seem like it would be a lot, but it really does take up quite a bit of space, especially if you have really, really small models you're working with. This Chaos Lord could probably fit 2 shielded wires in there pretty easily, but some of them I haven't. As a matter of fact, I've been struggling for space on a lot of these things. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my little soldering point here, and I'm going to go ahead and solder this guy together. It's kind of hard getting this to show in front of the camera. Okay, so I've waited for my soldering iron to heat up a little bit, and in the meantime I've made a piece of unshielded wire. All I did was take the same wire and stripped it, twisted it. There's plenty of places out there that'll teach you how to do that, plenty of techniques of doing it, so I'm not even going to bother going over that. In addition, I'm not going to teach you how to solder stuff. There's plenty of places out there to do that. Bottom line is we need to solder this and that together, as well as this and that. And I'll let you watch me do it, but I'm not going to explain too much about the techniques of soldering, and hopefully you can see through my big old fat hands as I do this. little bit of practice, you get quicker at it too. And again, I highly recommend one of these little helping hands deals. I picked this one up from Harbor Freight for like $7. If you do any soldering at all, or even some of the painting, they're great for. They got the magnifying glass on it and the whole nine. I don't use it for the magnifying glass much because it throws my perception off, and especially when I'm painting, I simply can't have that. My eyes are good enough to not worry about it, but I can definitely see the benefit. And again, you want to cut this as short as possible whenever you clip it off here, and you want to keep your positive and negative straight, because that's very important. So I'm going to go ahead and solder that together as well. And there we go. Remember the first one I put together, it took me a good 20 minutes to solder this stupid LED, and I can do it in 2 seconds. Yeah, go figure. So now I'm going to test my circuit here. Just basically want to make sure that my light comes on whenever I touch the negative to the negative side, the positive to the positive side. So here is the moment of truth. Drum roll, please. Yay! So that tests my solder. Again, you want to test all this stuff 5 ways from Sunday, because the worst thing that you can do is having to rip a model apart with a bad LED or a bad solder connection in there. So next thing we're going to do, we're going to unhook our LED, and we are going to wire our model. Now on some of them the feet will already be together. I'm going to go ahead and clip off the straight ends here so I have solid pointy ends. I can always restrip the wire later to test it again, which I will, but it makes it easier to run it through if I don't have to mess with that. I'm also going to unplug the soldering iron so I don't burn the shit out of myself or my desk. And on this particular model, a lot of times I'll thread the copper one, the unshielded one, first, simply because it's more difficult to mess with and it's smaller, and then I'll push the shielded one through and thread it all the way down. Remember I said it was going to fit in the butt just so? I might need to do a little bit more hollowing out on that. I'm going to. See how it's fitting kind of cockeyed? I don't want it to do that. I want it to sit dead down in there. But you see how the rest of it flowed out perfectly. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that back out and I'm going to re-hollow some. You know, I've done this a bunch of times, but even I still make mistakes. So, take a little bit bigger of a drill bit. Trying to chop too much up. It's just the base there that needs to be hollowed out a little bit. I'm also, on every LED there's this little lip around there that you can trim off to give yourself just a little bit more space if you need to. I hesitate to do it because it's really easy to break the LED doing it, but sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes you screw up and you want to add a little bit more room for error anyway. Again, I'm just going to thread this back through the hole, just like a needle and thread, and down she goes. Hopefully, if I did it right. Should be pretty well dead on. Now to go for the final piece, into the other piece of the foot. Most times you won't have two pieces of foot, so like I said, this one makes it a little bit easier because of that. And as you see, I have my wiring done. Now, we're going to test it again, just to make sure I didn't break any connections. You want to test as you're doing this, because it's real easy to bust a solder or a light connection somewhere and mess up the whole thing and have to redo it from scratch. Redoing it is a bad thing. As is losing your battery. Ta-da! Okay, so now I have my basic structure together. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of glue down. Here we go. Okay, so when gluing this, the different stuff that you can use for glue. Personally, I almost always use just good old-fashioned, cheap old tester's glue. I'm going to use a good GW shit. It's too expensive. This works great. I've never had a problem with it. And a lot of people talk about how little you want to use. Frankly, we're modifying the shit out of this, and we're going to be using some putty to fill in the holes anyway. So I don't worry about using a little. I want to use a lot. But I do want to keep it in several pieces because I want to be able to go back if I make a mistake. And again, this is based on experimentation with other Terminators, so I know the best route here is to put the body together and then fit it into the waist. A lot of times you want to keep the waist and the body separate so you can pose and move it around however you want to set it up. The other piece I'm going to glue together is the feet. I don't like to put most of my model together beforehand because I want to keep it free for painting. Also on this guy we're going to have magnetic arms, so you definitely don't want to put the arms together. So what we're looking at right now is the base and the feet. The wiring usually has to go first though, because you'll screw up any paint job that you do in the process of hollowing it out. Also, you can use painting, your various paint jobs, to cover up places you make a mistake whenever you do the drilling. You know, this is a small, delicate plastic. It's real easy to screw shit up. And you'll notice that the LED itself is not glued in place at all. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to make it nice and big hole there. Just going to kind of get a decent fit here. Count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, that'll hold itself pretty well. I don't want to budge it too much, but I still have my LED sitting in there. And I have my two pieces, and they fit together. And if I wanted to make a test glow, I can do it. But I can see down inside there, the light's sitting almost exactly where I want it to sit, kind of bubbled up there. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drill out my metal head here, which I'm not going to record that because it's going to take forever. Drilling on metal models takes a long time. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then once it's drilled out, I'll show you the fiber optics in place. All I'm going to do is I'm going to take these very small drills, and I'm going to drill directly in to the eyeballs, and then up through the neck in various sizes, and hollow it as much as I can to create a cavity that I can thread fiber optics down this way through there. And I'll show you the finished result on that, hopefully. So I'll have fiber optics sticking out of his eyes, which will go into this little cavity here and touch down to the lit LED lighting up his eyes. So I'll show you that here in a minute.